Hello, I'm Dane, and this is Dane Explains. In the year 1950, Enrico Fermi and his co-workers Emil Konopinski, Edward Teller, and Herbert York were having a conversation during lunch, where they worked at Los Alamos Labs in New Mexico. They were discussing all the UFOs that had been sighted recently, which led to them conjecturing about how common aliens, yes, little green men, must be in the universe, which they thought must be fairly common. Considering how old the universe is, this led Enrico Fermi to exclaim, "Where are all the aliens?" This is what's now called the Fermi Paradox, because by all rights, aliens should be everywhere, but they aren't. Let me explain why. The Fermi Paradox is the idea that there should be aliens all around us. They should have discovered our planet long before we even showed up, but they haven't. At least that is if we aren't some kind of alien doctoral student's research experiment. I've touched on the Fermi Paradox in a few of my videos, so you might want to poke around my channel to find them. Modern sci-fi books and movies tend to give the impression that once we go into space and start exploring the stars, we're going to find all kinds of active alien civilizations and cultures. Sorry, Trekkie fans, but this idea is totally preposterous. Unless the ridiculously unlikely probability that all the alien civilizations popped up at the same time and then developed at the same rate. I mean, think about it for a second. Human civilization is about 10,000 years old, and the human species as a whole is about 10 times that old. Now, if that makes your eyes roll because you're a young Earth believer, you should go and watch my 28th video on how the scientific reckoning of history and the biblical reckoning of history can both be correct. Link in the description. I have to warn you though, there is a lot of supporting videos I've made for that one. At any rate, we've only had modern technology for the last 100 years or maybe 150 years or so. That's 1% of human history and only 1/10 of 1% of human existence. That's not a whole lot, and we're already starting to travel into space. I mean, of course, it could have taken a lot longer. When the Europeans first started to colonize the Americas, the Native Americans were probably a good 5,000 years behind them, technologically speaking. So, if some cataclysm had happened and the old world peoples of Europe and Asia had been set back, it could have taken a few thousand years more for us to reach this point. It could have also happened even faster. Most people aren't aware that 2,000 years ago, Hero of Alexandria, and yes, his name was Hero, invented the first steam engine. You heard that right, 2,000 years ago. It was pretty simple by today's standard and was little more than a novelty at the time. However, there were people at that time looking for just such a device to deliver power to their inventions. But they never met. Can you imagine where we'd be if the Industrial Revolution had happened 2,000 years ago? We'd no doubt be spread out among at least the nearest dozen or so stars. That's conjecture, of course, but it comes to the point. Once a civilization reaches a tipping point in innovation, technological progression can happen very quickly. All you need is the right trigger, like a match being lit in the air with just the right mix of natural gas. The universe is almost 14 billion years old, so compared to the age of the universe, human history is the blink of an eye. If an alien civilization popped up in our galaxy even 1% faster than us, odds are they would be living on every single livable system in the galaxy by now. Think about it. 1% of 14 billion years is 140 million years. Even if they were slow and took a few thousand extra years to reach their industrial revolution, they'd still be 140 million years more advanced than us. give or take a couple thousand years or so. Considering how fast our technology is progressing, that's a lot. Even if those aliens never came up with the way to go faster than light, they could still be all over the galaxy by now. The Milky Way galaxy is only about 100,000 light years across. So, even if the aliens could only achieve speeds of maybe 10% the speed of light, they'd cross the whole galaxy in 1 million years. That would be less than 1% of the time their civilization existed. With 100 times that amount of time, they would have explored every planet in the whole galaxy several times over. And that's only ever being able to get up to 10% the speed of light. We can assume they would be able to achieve speeds even faster than that. So to circle around back, where are all the aliens? Well, there's a bazillion different reasons, and I'm not going to hit every one in this short video, but I will mention the most commonly proposed ideas. Usually the first one is something that's cited as the Great Filter, which is the idea that something destroys alien civilizations before they can get advanced. I think the name of it kind of describes why this probably wouldn't be the big reason. It's the Great Filter, not the Great Wall. Things will get through, and even if one alien race managed to do it in the last few billion years, they would have colonized the whole galaxy by now. Although, like I mentioned before, we could be in some kind of alien students experiment while pursuing some higher education. Star Trek's solution was something called the Prime Directive, which was just a law that prohibited the Federation members from interfering with non-interstellar intelligent species. This, of course, doesn't make too much sense on a large scale because we can't assume that every race that comes about would follow the same rules. In fact, even in Star Trek, the more advanced Vulcans, which discovered humans around the year 2262, had no prime directive. Even today, and it's not certain for sure, it appears that faster than light warp technology might be possible. If that were the case, it would make the current apparent lack of aliens even more unlikely. Another explanation is that intelligent aliens like ourselves are just extremely rare. So rare, in fact, that even if they somehow knew we were here and tried to reach us, they couldn't. At the moment, we can't see anything that looks inevitable that will most likely stop us from becoming interstellar travelers. However, there are lots of things that could have gotten in the way between the beginning of life and us. If you watch my video on alien life, link in the description, I touched on the idea. It seems that Mars and Venus were both capable of having life millions or maybe billions of years ago. With Mars in particular, we can see it had some kind of great oxygenation event in its past, which the Earth also had, and with Earth, it was caused by life. The Great Oxygenation Event is one of those filters. About 2 billion years ago, photosynthesizing microbes started to produce oxygen as a waste. So yeah, it's kind of like we need microbe and plant pee to breathe. But like pee is for us, oxygen was very bad for the microbes at the time. Our need for it is actually one of the major causes of cancer, because oxygen and its byproducts can be very toxic. For over 1 billion years, it wasn't an issue though, because there were lots of things for the oxygen to react with. That is why there are many places that have red clay and soil. Those areas were exposed at some point during the billion-year period. Once oxygen had oxidized just about everything, and also probably due to more efficient photosynthesis, oxygen started to build up in Earth's atmosphere. It built up the toxic levels for most organisms. Then, a few microbes acquired a way to not only reduce the toxic effects of oxygen, but to use it to its advantage. It's easy to see this was one of those great filters. If Mars was red because of life causing oxygenation, it clearly didn't make it out of the other side of the oxygenation event. The other issue is the need for plate tectonics. Earth has plate tectonics, and no other planet in the solar system does. Plate tectonics recycles anything that gets buried or sequestered under the ground due to subduction via volcanoes. Mars and Venus both didn't have plates, or they froze early on. This can be seen on Mars because it has the largest, now dead, volcanoes in the solar system. Any hot spot in Mars' mantle would poke a hole in the crust in the form of a volcano. Since there were no plates, the crust didn't move and the volcanoes just grew huge. Theory has it that perhaps the crust on Venus was too thick for that, and the pressure built up under the crust. And with no cracks for it to get out, like we have here on Earth, eventually the surface of the entire planet breaks open, like a giant planet-wide volcano. Why did Earth somehow avoid this fate? Venus is so similar in size to Earth that it's called Earth's twin. Its hellish twin, so it wasn't just the size that kept the crust from freezing. It was most likely the moon. Its tides massage the Earth like rolling a hard-boiled egg to get the shell off of it. That extra massaging also helps keep the Earth's interior sloshing around, giving Earth the only major protective magnetic field of a rocky planet in our solar system. All of the cores of the other rocky planets, with perhaps the exception of Mercury, froze millions of years ago, shutting down their protective magnetic fields. Our moon is bizarrely huge, and it's probably extremely rare for a planet of our size. It's thought it was created by a collision with another planet called Theia. Simulations have shown that for such a large, stable moon like ours to form, the collision would have had to have happened just right. Of course, another way around the issue is just to have a larger planet that takes longer to cool off, smaller than a gas giant, but larger than the Earth. These are called super-Earths. There may be issues with these planets that we're not aware of yet, but one of the major issues that we do know would be a filter is gravity. Earth, which it seems needs to be this big to sustain life for long enough for us to be here, is also just small enough to make getting into space possible at all. Any bigger, and the only way to get into space would have been nuclear propulsion, which would be even harder to achieve on super-Earths since the heavier elements needed for such propulsion would be less available, since they weigh more than the other elements and would be more likely to sink into the core of the planet. So yeah, you never know. We may go out into space only to find a bunch of aliens stuck on their super-Earth-sized planets. Then again, if that were the case, we'd still be able to detect them with radio survey projects like the SETI project, but maybe they are too rare for that anyway. There's also some evidence in our genome that some cataclysm happened in the past that knocked our species down to less than 1,000 individuals. I wonder what could have caused that. This video is going long, so let's wrap it up. I hope you're starting to get the point that it's probably no one individual thing that has prevented us from finding aliens or from aliens finding us. There are many things that had to happen in just the right way for us to be around and to even be able to think about traveling to the stars that would make winning the lottery jackpot seem like an everyday occurrence. Considering all that, I would presume there just aren't any other aliens in our galaxy that are capable of traveling the stars. Then again, most of the stars older than ours don't have much of the heavy elements needed for life. So, we may have actually appeared extremely early in what appears to be the possible livable lifetime of our universe. So maybe there are many races just popping out at the same time, and all we have to do is go out there and meet them. If you like this video, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.